Do the Royals still have a run in them? Chance and I will talk about it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a Thursday afternoon edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I am the host of Locked On Royals, Jack Johnson. That is the host of the Locked On Royals postcast, Chance Liebau. You can check him out after each and every Royals game. He'll get him up very shortly after that because he goes live, and he goes live for about 15 to 20 minutes. So every time we've got an off day, we try to bring Chance on. We'll go back and forth and toss out some new ideas that we don't always get to toss back and forth. So very excited for that today. We've got 3 great segments lined up for you. But before we dive into those segments, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. As always, you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. You can do the same for Chance Liebau, just his first and last name there. Get his Royals content. Know when the postcast is going live. You will not miss a second of Royals baseball coverage when you come to our channel. All right, Chance, the first segment's pretty broad here. And I feel a lot of people have been asking themselves the same question, which is with 28, 29 games to go, the Royals being 3 games back of Seattle, they are 5, I believe, of Boston and 4.5 back of New York for one of those playoff spots. Do they have a run in them? So let's just start with the very broad question here. Your gut feeling. Do you feel that in the final month of this season, the Royals are going to be able to catch up to either Seattle, Boston, or New York?
I mean, I've been on the record of saying I just don't think they have a run in them. I did think they had a run in them, and that run is over. They won 8 of 10 on the homestand against some pretty lowly competition, and then they split the road trip. So I think that the best baseball is probably behind them at this point. When you look at the schedule they have upcoming, 9 straight home games, and you get the Angels and the Twins at home, who are teams that you really have an upper hand on, in my opinion. I think they're better than both of those teams. You're getting a little bit healthier. Cags will probably be back for that series. Maybe we see Cole Reagans make an appearance or two. But I think if they do have a run in them, it has to start this weekend. I think you have to take 2 of 3 against Detroit. You cannot have this, just treading water, circling the drain moment where right now they just can't seem to get out of their own way. They have to take 2 of 3. And like you talked about a little bit on your show that was posted last night, they get some favorable matchups with a guy like Chris Paddock, who they're going to be happy to see again. Jack Flaherty, I believe, will start in this series. And then you get some bounce back opportunities for guys like Seth Lugo, who definitely didn't have his best stuff in that series. So I think you have to get that your stretch of games where you rip off 8 of 9 or 7 of 9, where you gain some ground in the standings. I mean, I've said it time and time again, until they get within one game of a playoff spot, I just don't believe this team is a playoff team. Now, they got close. They got to 2 games within Seattle. I need to see them a game within, because then it starts to become take 2 of 3 in a series and you're in a playoff spot. I just need to see that before I, throw up the contender flag with this team. I've said it on the record on the show. I think they're competitors. I don't think they're contenders just yet. And I think that maybe this week they'll prove me wrong.
It's interesting because last year you had a couple of teams in the playoff race that were very vulnerable. It's why Detroit, with their ridiculous run, they were able to make up so much ground, because Minnesota was falling off a cliff at that point. You could have looked at the Royals and said, Vinny Pasquantino just went down. They lose 7 in a row to begin September. So there were cracks, right? There were openings for Detroit to leapfrog somebody. And for this current playoff race, man, you're talking about Boston, who's been one of the better teams since they traded Rafael Devers. I'll never be able to wrap my mind around that. The Yankees, at the end of the day, are still the Yankees. They've got Aaron Judge on their team. It's tough to go into the Bronx and win for these other teams. In Seattle is that team that probably has the best chance of being vulnerable. But with that pitching staff and how aggressive they were at the deadline, it's going to take a lot for them to fall off. Now, I will say this before I give my answer. The Royals will begin a 9-game homestand tomorrow. That'll include Detroit. That'll include the Angels. And that will include Minnesota. So you have 2 teams in that 9-game stretch that are not playing good baseball. The Angels, surprise, surprise, finally gave into their run differential, and they turned out to be who we always thought they were going to be. The Twins, that series is probably going to go a little bit differently than what we saw when they were in Minnesota. Detroit, though, is the one, like you said, man, you take 2 of 3, you can feel very good about this homestand. At the same time, the Royals had this 9-game homestand. The Mariners have a 9-game road trip, and that's going to go over Cleveland, and then they're going to have Tampa Bay, and then they're also going to wrap that up against Atlanta, who has been really, really hot. They're starting to look like the Atlanta offense that we all anticipated. But I kind of feel that I'm right there with you. I feel it'd be foolish with their playoff odds right now, chasing 3 games to say this team is going to make a run. I think it's going to be very close. Let me say that, because these 2 teams, Seattle and the Royals, meet up in Kansas City in mid-September. I think that series will be decided, and when that series is decided, it's going to eventually show who that playoff team is going to be. If the Royals enter 3 games back of Seattle, which I think at worst they have to be, that's where I feel like if they took 2 of 3, they're really going to make it close all the way to the final week. If the Mariners win that series, it's all but wrapped up at that point. But these next 9 games, you've got 9 road games for the Mariners, 9 home games for the Royals. The Mariners have been a sub-500 team on the road. This feels like the opportunity. This feels like your chance to get a game back, maybe tie the Mariners, but you got to hope teams like Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta show up. And at the same time, the Royals have a 6-3 or 7-2 homestand. Aside from Seattle, are you looking at Boston and New York anymore, or are you pretty much just zeroed in on the Mariners?
I mean, I'm pretty much zeroed in on the Mariners. I mean, I'm looking at the FanDuel odds right now, and the Mariners have plus 590 odds to miss the playoffs. Royals are at plus 470. And then if you look at the standings, I mean, the Rangers are playing some winning baseball as well, and they have a much better run differential. It looks like they have the 4th best run differential in the entire American League. So the Rangers are playing much better baseball as well. They are continuing to gain steam, gain ground on the Royals as well. So you don't just have to, chase Seattle. You kind of have to fend off the Rangers as well, who are for pound, about as talented as Seattle. They just had so many injuries this season, and some guys regress a little bit in terms of their veterans. But, I mean, I'm really just targeting Seattle. And like you said, they are a team where they made a ton of moves, and they historically have struggled. And I think that, they made those moves to combat the fact that they have struggled down the stretch in years past. But I just really feel like this is a Royals team that, like you said, they've got to win 7 of 9, 6 of 9, and hope that Seattle struggles on the road. But if Seattle rips off a sweep, then it seems like the Royals are just a little bit too little, too late. But also you have to respect the moves that the organization made to put them in this position.
Yeah, and Seattle is one of those teams that just never really seemed to make those moves. I mean, last year they tried a little bit. That game in Kansas City where they blew a 7-0 lead was kind of the difference when it's all said and done. And for the Royals, when it's all said and done, if they miss the postseason, it's very obvious where you have to go back to. It's not one series or one game. It's that entire month of June. If they played slightly better in the month of June, because they were ghastly that entire month. The offense couldn't score. The pitching staff started to regress a little bit. They had been swept multiple times. And that's what I believe got the Royals into the postseason last year, was that they were great at avoiding the sweep. They didn't get swept until, I want to say, the very end of June. And the Royals got swept multiple times in June and already had been swept earlier in the year by the Yankees in New York. But that will be that month where even if they play great baseball to close out the season, you're going to be hurting for that month where you just had to be 3 or 4 games better than you really were. And that's the only month I can really turn to and say, man, that was an awful month. Every other month, they've been about 500 or better than that. And they can definitely hang their hat on that. If they finish this year 85-77, 2 games out of the playoff spot, I'm not going to call it a failure, mainly because at the end of the day, Chance, and I'm curious your thoughts on this before we hit break, we have to understand who the Royals have been for a number of years. I mean, you go back to 2000. There has only been 2 seasons in which they have gone in the playoffs back-to-back years. They had 3 straight years with a winning record in 2013, 2014, and 2015. But going into this year, we talked about it in spring training. yes, we want to predict they make the postseason. Yes, we want to predict they win this division, but odds would tell you over 25 seasons, they don't do that. So them going 85-77 after making the playoffs and winning a series a year ago is not a failure, but it's totally acceptable to be let down because this team we knew had its opportunity to be a 90-win ball club.
Yeah, and it was predictable in the preseason. I mean, the books had it as Royals were an underdog to make the playoffs, and you had to expect a little bit of regression to the mean from some of their star players. I mean, you expected Salvi to take a step back because of age. Bobby Witt Jr. had the second best shortstop season according to WAR since the Royals became a franchise. That is incredible. And he was second in MVP voting. I mean, one of the best seasons of all time. And he's having a down year and he's third in MVP odds. That's how good Bobby Witt Jr. is. But you also expected steps forward for guys like MJ Melendez, who somehow, some way, after a horrible season last year, took a massive step back. Guys like Michael Massey, who was leading off playoff games last year, took a significant step back and also battled injuries. And that just kind of hurt the team a little bit. Guys taking steps back who you knew were going to, and also guys failing to take that put that foot forward and become everyday players that you wanted and expected to be. That's where the Royals became disappointing. And also the injury bug hit them. Last year, they were uncharacteristically healthy. This year, you've seen a lot of their starting pitchers have health spells where they've been on the injured list. So that's been a point of concern as well.
All right, we are going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners that wanted us to talk about Seth Lugo, the struggles, anything that we may be seeing. We'll dive into that next on Locked On Royals. Welcome back into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. This is the host of the Locked On Royals Postcast, Chance Liebau. We're going to still have two full segments to get into. But before we do that, I want to tell you about one of our title sponsors today in Upside. Are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code SEASON and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by and download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code SEASON for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code SEASON, and offers vary by user and location. So go to upside.com for terms and conditions. This is something that we needed to be talking about probably a couple of days ago, because when Seth Lugo made his start over the weekend, it wasn't pretty once again. And you can make a very good case that since he signed the extension, he's only had one good start. And it has been a while since Seth Lugo has had that level of consistency. And it's going to, of course, concern some fans out there. And I guess, Chance, we'll kick this off now. Where do you feel that the Royals are going to regret Seth Lugo's extension, or do you feel that we are seeing what we saw last year, which was for about a month and a half, Seth Lugo was a totally different pitcher that was getting shelled, was giving up 6 to 7 runs per game, was no longer striking out anybody, fought his command a little bit? Are we just seeing that once again? Or is this a more glaring issue in some stuff that you might be seeing with those underlying numbers?
I mean, expecting him to be, heading into, what is he now, 35 years old, expecting him to go into year 35, year 36 next year, is the frontline ace of this staff, a guy that can give you 200 innings. It might have been, I don't know if we should have been expecting that, but give credit for what credit's due. Seth Lugo's been fantastic at times throughout his Royals tenure, but the wheels are starting to fall off here at the end of the season. I was a little bit surprised that it was Noah Cameron's start that they're skipping heading into this next part of the schedule in this last month of the season. Not Seth Lugo. A lot of people in my chat have been kind of rumoring that, floating it as a possibility. I don't know if I'd say I'm worried. Last night we were talking about guys that the Royals have locked up for next year as potential starters. I mean, there is a significant there's a chance that they go 6-man rotation next year, at least to start, which I think would be a great idea to keep the tread off the tires for guys like Lugo and Reagans and even Noah Cameron to a certain extent, because you think about the guys they have next year locked up. Cole Reagan, Seth Lugo, and Michael Waka are under contract. You have guys in Noah Cameron and Chris Bubich and Ryan Bergert, who shoved last night, guys that you want to be in your rotation. So 6 guys there that could be starters long-term. So maybe you don't have to rely on Seth Lugo as much as you have these last 2 seasons. Maybe you're able to skip his starts every once in a while, but the advanced numbers just aren't great for Seth Lugo. I'm a big Savant guy. I mean, 12th percentile expected ERA, gives up a lot of hard contacts, 16th percentile hard hit rate, does not get a whole lot of swing and miss, which is one of my concerns for this Royals pitching staff. They just don't get guys out enough at the plate. Is it a reason to be concerned? Not really, because he's been this pitcher for the last 2 years and the numbers have been great. But some of the underlying numbers point to some, like we talked about in the last segment, point to some potential regression with Seth Lugo. But what's that regression going to look like? Is he going to be a pitcher with a 5 ERA, that late tenure Ian Kennedy where he's just getting bombed time and time again? Or is he just going to be a middle of the road 4-ish ERA guy that can give you 180 innings a season? Maybe he just turns into the workhorse of this Royals pitching staff. Maybe that's who Seth Lugo is for the next 3 years. But I don't know if I would say I regret them giving him that extension, but definitely some things to be concerned about for sure.
Yeah. And this segment idea came up from Baseball9295 on Twitter, and I did want to get to it and talk about some of these things with Seth Lugo and maybe where my concerns are at. First things first, there's still a chance that when the weather cools down a little bit, he can start to pick things up back again. I mean, we've seen it before in baseball where, the offense, they're going to heat up when that weather really gets warm and it's 90, 95 degrees. We certainly know that in Kansas City. But the pitchers can kind of get back to form once it dips back to maybe low 60s, maybe get some games in the high 50s. That could be, on schedule here for Seth Lugo of when he finally hits his stride again. The Royals, unfortunately, don't have that much longer in the year to rely on that. He can't really have another start like he's had multiple times in the last 5. He needs to be vintage Seth Lugo the rest of the way if they are to make the postseason. One thing I would contemplate going into next year, and I wonder if you think this would be a good idea because he is making a lot of money. This is not an extension that is going to be done at the end of the year. The Royals are going to have him for a chunk of time, right? They have him on the books for 3 more years, and then he also has that 4th-year option. He's never been in his career a 200-inning guy. That's what he was last year. He's also 35 years old. He is going to be on the back half of his career, and he's been phenomenal early on in the year. Both years with the Royals, he has just been stellar, like April, May, and June, and then he kind of hits that rut July and August. Do you go into next year trying to prevent something like this from happening again, where maybe in April, Seth Lugo has given up 1 hit through 5 shutout innings, and he's at 60 pitches, and you say, that's good enough for us. We're not going to try to force the issue here because you need to play the long game where if he's loading up with these 5 innings of 1-run ball, maybe 6 innings, like what Ryan Bergert does. Ryan Bergert's typically a 5 to 6 inning guy. Now, last night he threw 98 pitches or whatever it was. I'm more so talking about pulling him when he's got a low pitch count. Because if you throw 5, 6 innings at 100 pitches, it's the same stress on your arm, if not more. So I'm almost wondering if that hurts you because you're paying him to be a 200-inning guy. I mean, you're giving him the money over 3 to 4 years to be a 180 to 200-inning guy. But I don't know. I feel I'd much rather have the production like he had in San Diego where he throws 140 innings, but he's got a 3.2 ERA. Like, that still seems very valuable to me where it's better than having 190 innings but a 4.5 ERA. What say you?
I mean, I think you've got a good idea, but I think they implemented that early in the season. Seth Lugo pitch counts in March and April, 86, 85, 109 in a loss to the Twins, 98, 105, 94. So then you see some more, then 93, 98, 96. And then he has that injured list stint with the finger injury. And then he comes back, 69 pitches, 73 pitches, and then a lot of work under 90 since the All-Star break. So I think they've tried to do that. And I'd love, maybe there's a doctor, an arm doctor that listens on occasion that can give us the evidence. But I mean, has there been a successful like load management stint in Major League Baseball? I know they tried in the NBA, and we're seeing more leg blowouts than ever, Achilles injuries than ever, despite this load management thing. I think you ride the horse till the wheels fall off. Really, I think you just kind of take it. You know what you're going to get in July, but also when he's in April and May, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, and you can't pull back the reins, so to say, or so to speak, when he's at his best, because you kind of already know that he's not going to be his best in July. You've already tried it to a certain extent. So maybe you experiment a little bit, but I don't think there's any reason to switch up what he's been doing. But I think that this last stretch of games is definitely something to be concerned about. But I just don't know what the answer is going into next season. It's going to be something that the Royals have to answer, and I think they have the depth to answer that as well.
Yeah, when we get back to spring training next year, I would love to have a conversation with Seth Lugo, because it's been back-to-back years where that's happened. I'm not sure if he'd admit it, if it's fatigue, if it's something that he saw mechanically. But, yeah, the Royals are definitely going to need to find it out. And fingers crossed going into this weekend, they get vintage Seth Lugo, because they absolutely need it. Let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, yes, we're going to talk about Seth Lugo again, but we're going to talk about this series as a whole at Kauffman Stadium. Going to be some packed crowds. You've got Husker fans in town. You've got the Powder Blues again on Saturday, nationally televised game, and then Tarek Skubal pitching on Sunday. Should be a lot of fun. Let's talk about that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. That is Chance Liebau of the Locked On Royals postcast. You can listen to us on wherever you get your podcasts. Few things I want to talk about before we move on to our final segment. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you, and we put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey, and you can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks, as always, for helping us out. Also want to tell you about Gametime, and there's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting the tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply, so again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, and download Gametime today. The Royals are off today, hence why we did a co-op episode, as we like to do sometimes on these Thursday off days. But the Royals will begin a 9-game homestand tomorrow. They will face Detroit for the final time in the regular season. First pitch on Friday, I believe, will be at 7:10. Exactly that. Seth Lugo, who we just talked about, is going to be getting the ball. And Chris Paddock, who the Royals saw last weekend in Detroit, he will be throwing for the Tigers. He is 5-11 with a 4.98 ERA. For game one here, Chance, is this a good sign for the Royals? I mean, Chris Paddock did pitch well against them at Comerica Park, but is this a time in the season where you go, I'm glad we're seeing somebody so quickly again, right? Somebody that doesn't have good numbers this year, hasn't been good for quite some time. He got the best of us the last time out, but now we've got that book on him. Or is this a scenario where you go, man, we just saw that guy and we couldn't see him, and now we got to see him again?
I'd say the former, especially with the fact that they finally got an off day. I mean, you and I have talked about it ad nauseum that this team just looks gassed, whether it be starting pitchers, bullpen. They just look gassed right now on a long stretch of games without a whole lot of time. Now they get an opportunity to face a guy, like you said, that they've seen recently, and I think that will do them some good. I know they didn't look that great against Paddock in their first appearance, but I think that there's some spots to build off of. maybe the one thing I'm looking for is, please, can the Royals score maybe the first time through the order? They did that pretty well in the homestand against the Rangers and the White Sox, the Nationals, and then a little bit throughout the Tigers series. We just saw them get, pantsed in the first two times the last two games against the White Sox by starting pitchers that have fairly pedestrian numbers. I'd like to see them get out early, especially with this home crowd. I mean, if they go down, if they're down 2-0 and have 2 hits through 5 innings, there'll be a lot of moaning and groaning in the stands a little bit, despite the fact the Royals just won in comeback fashion in the last 2. You would like to see them have some better showcases in the first time through the order against a pretty pedestrian pitcher in Chris Paddock.
Yeah, so it'll be Paddock and Lugo on Friday. Just quick answer for you here. Does Seth Lugo get back up on the beam here, have a quality start, or are the Tigers going to get to him yet again?
I think we see a much better start from Seth Lugo. Been much better at home throughout his entire Royals tenure, and he's the guy I think that you want on the mound in game 1 of a series. I don't know what the numbers say about Seth Lugo in game 1 of series, but I think that him being your tone setter is exactly what the Royals need for this series.
First pitch again at 7:10 p.m. Central Time. For Saturday's game, the Royals have not announced a starter. It is scheduled, or was scheduled, I should say, for Noah Cameron. He would be on regular rest, but the fact they have not named him the starter makes me think they could get a little bit creative, maybe skip him one time in the rotation. Jack Flaherty, who the Royals lit up in the series finale in Detroit, will be going for the Tigers. He is 7-13 with a 4.87 ERA. Did get shown this last night on Twitter that Stephen Kolek was pulled after 1 inning. I don't know if he was the opener for the Storm Chasers. I don't know if he would be called up to make this start. That would kind of make sense because that's a Wednesday game. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's on 3 days rest, so I can't imagine it would be him. Do they just go with Noah Cameron here? I mean, it kind of felt like before that the rotation was not lined up this way. I thought it was actually going to be Cameron on Sunday, Waka on Friday, and then Lugo on Saturday, but they kind of mixed it around a little bit. Do you see them going with an opener? Do you see it being Noah Cameron? Do you see it being somebody from AAA? Who do you believe is going to start on Saturday night?
I think it'll all be determined on how Seth Lugo throws tomorrow night. Maybe they have a bullpen game tomorrow. I think that is probably the most likely, or not tomorrow, Saturday. I think the most likely scenario is you see either Kolek or Avila work in bulk after they get called up because, I guess not. I guess the roster expansion isn't until Monday. So maybe I'll eat my words, but I don't know. I think it depends on how Lugo throws. Maybe we see Stephen Kolek, but his numbers in Omaha are atrocious. He has gotten rocked in Omaha. Also a very hitter-friendly league, so I will not, I don't want to judge Omaha numbers. We've been fooled by AAA numbers pretty much all season, so maybe we need to take a break on the Omaha pitching numbers. But maybe they go Noah Cameron, but maybe they saw something they didn't like health-wise from him in their last outing, or in his last outing against the White Sox. Failed to get out of the 6th inning, but I am very curious. I really don't know. Maybe we see if Seth Lugo is able to go 7, maybe we see a bullpen game with a bulk reliever in there, but I don't know. It's a very interesting question and something that definitely caught my attention when Andy Rogers tweeted it out.
If they didn't want to call up anybody, I could see a world in which they let Serpa or Jonathan Bolin be the opener to take some stress off of Noah Cameron. But I do find it fascinating that in a game like this late in the season, one of your best arms is scheduled to throw, and they have not announced that starter. But maybe they are waiting to see how Seth Lugo looks. Because if Seth Lugo gets rocked on Friday night and he can only make it 4 innings, and Noah Cameron has already thrown over 100 innings this year, which, I mean, say what you want about arm fatigue and guys throwing 100 to 110 innings in their first season. We saw it with Brady Singer that though the Royals were out of it in most of those years, they would shut him down for the final month of the season because they didn't want him suffering any arm injury that would take him out of next season. I don't see that for Noah Cameron. I really don't. I feel that there is some fatigue there, which is why they want to be very, very careful in handling him the rest of the way. They absolutely need him, but they need him at his freshest point here. And then you go to Sunday, the series finale. It'll be Michael Wacha going up against Tarek Skubal. I almost wonder, Chance, because Michael Wacha has been this team's most consistent arm this season.
Leader in innings.
Leader in innings. He is 8-10, 3.39 ERA. He's been fantastic at home. Do you think they saved him for Sunday because Tarek Skubal is throwing on Sunday, and you're going to try to find a way to, at worst, win one of these games on Friday and Saturday? But you know the Tigers are going to have the upper hand if this is a split series going into Sunday. Skubal, 11-4, 2.28 ERA, slightly the betting favorite to win the American League Cy Young for the second straight season. What do you think about that? Do you feel that they pushed Walker back for Sunday so they can have not an equal matchup, but their best arm at this point in time they can throw up against maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they did. And especially because last time those two faced off, day game at the K, I was there, 1-0 Royals win, and Walker carried a no-no into the 6th inning. So I would imagine that is probably the case. I was actually looking, and Noah Cameron being on that TBD, I was looking to see, because they don't really have anybody they could send down. Jonathan Bolin has to be on the team for the entirety of the season. I was looking to see if maybe his wife is expecting a baby here soon or something, because that is, it is fall baby season. So I was wondering, because like I said, they don't have anybody to send down. Why wouldn't they wait until the roster expansion date on Monday? So I don't want to do the Brian Windhorst, what's really going on here. But I don't know. I don't know if they DFA Sam Long, but there's definitely some intriguing options for them to showcase on Saturday.
Last thing from you, Chance. How do you see this series going down? Do the Royals get them back for what happened last weekend? They take 2 of 3. Do they get swept? Do they sweep the Tigers? I know that's pretty much a pipe dream. But how do you see this final 3-game series with Detroit in the regular season playing out?
Give me the Tigers taking 2 of 3. I'll be the pessimist. I think that their showing against Chris Paddock last time out was not great, and it's really hard to beat Tarek Skubal, although the A's rocked him last time. I think the Royals drop 2 of 3, but give me them winning on Sunday as the only game they win in the series.
Okay. I'm actually going the opposite way here. I think they take 2 of 3, but I think they win the first 2 and lose the series finale. It just feels that Friday night, it's going to be packed there. I think they fare much better against Chris Paddock. I think you get an exciting game on Saturday, nationally televised game on Fox, and then on Sunday. As much as the Royals have seen Tarek Skubal, I see Tarek Skubal pitching pretty well to avoid the sweep for the Tigers. But maybe I'm just saying that because the Royals absolutely need to take 2 of 3 from Detroit. Well, Chance, thank you as always. That'll do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow will be a Mailbag Friday, so get your questions in below. Entitle your question Mailbag Friday so I don't miss any of them. You can do it on this YouTube channel. You can also reach out to me on Twitter as well. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.